Okay, I think we can start. So the session will be first a presentation by Wilma, and then there will be some stellingen. What's the English word? Some statements that we can discuss about because, of course, ethics is a topic that's good to talk about with each other. Wilma, can you take the floor?
Yes, that's okay. Thank you, Martin. And welcome, Naomi, Marco. I'll give a short introduction about my background. Hi. And maybe we're just a few people. I'd like after that to hear a bit more from your own background, so I can maybe.
Yeah, we have 9 people in total now.
9 people in total. That's a lot. That's a lot. So we get started. It's about artificial intelligence and transparency. It's about the need for ethics and as a basic design element. My own background is from pharmaceutical practice. I'm a community pharmacy practitioner. So I'm quite aware of innovation in application, technical applications to humans. You could think about medication in this way. And I see a lot of parallels in artificial intelligence developments from the last years, that these applications are more or less kind of interventions that you could look at as medical, not medical devices, but medication. It's not swallowed. Until now, most has not been swallowed. It's not assimilated, but it has a lot of influence in the human condition. So the artificial intelligence as well as medication influences directly people's formation and development. And besides that, I have a background in philosophy, and I have another practice in education, and that's in how to assess moral dilemmas in professional practice in a methodical way. This is more or less what I do around the week. And if we look at the recent developments in information technology and broader artificial intelligence applications, then you could think about the Internet of Health things. Everything will be connected. We started with the Internet of connecting people together, but now also the artificial devices are connected to this internet, so it looks like a wholly controllable world. And at the other end, we are we're confronted with the lapses and the risks that come with this application of technology. And if you look at these developments, the applications of artificial intelligence technology in a human practice, then you can look at from a philosophical standpoint and from an ethical standpoint, and it's quite simple. From philosophical point of view, you look at the theory developments and the paradigm shifts that are taking place. Especially with the speed of this 4th technological revolution, which is really something else than the revolutions that we knew before. The scientific revolution, but the industrial revolution had a real massive impact on human practice and social life. And this is a very fast developing technology, so it has a huge impact, and we can't keep up with our human pace with these developments, but we are shaped by these innovations. So you should look at it from a theoretical point of view and also from a practical point of view. And a theoretical point of view is the theory building, and Jos Omen, for instance, presented some new theories and models of interactions of medications at the precision health level. And so this is a conceptual challenge. What are we talking about in this world with huge artificial intelligence things going around. The Internet of Things is also quite, we don't know how to talk about these things. What is the thing? Something you could be scared by, but also something that has to be researched for a long time. So it's about the meaning of the concept and definitions. That is the philosophical approach. And the ethical approach is just one question: what is the good thing to do? So this is about decision making and about clinical deliberation, scientific deliberation, clinical deliberation, and also moral deliberation, because technology, as I think we all are aware that technology is not value free. There are some values also built in the technological artifacts as they come, because they are aimed at a purpose. There's a purpose involved. It's a functionality, and there's a purpose involved. So how can you work with these technology in the professional practices? This is what the theme of today is. And then you can ask the question of responsible innovation and what it means to be a practical, to apply practical wisdom in the professional practices. So responsible innovation is the kind of research that, especially on the technological universities, is a central theme and focus. If you look at Wageningen, Delft, Eindhoven, Twente, all these universities, especially in the Netherlands, I think they are very fast moving to the top of the world at what they are looking at. And they all have, for me, they are really marked because they have a very heavy philosophical department. There are a lot of philosophers working with them. So you see a good integration of theoretical and practical impulse. So you need a different kind of scientific systems and methodologies to work with this new evolving artificial intelligence technologies. More or less the same. What kind of ethical considerations do you make? This is how humanity and technology, they have been around for all times. As long as there's humanity, there is technology, because we strive to survive and we strive to sustain as a species. And human culture is from the first, what we know about history is developing technological artifacts to help us sustain in our environments. So it's the interaction of humanity with its environment that urges us to develop technological devices to sustain and to control and master our context and our culture. And then when you decide about technology, you can look at certain approaches from the ethical point of view, or from accountability point of view, where also the legal system takes place. And you can look at it from the angle of principles, what should be done. You could look at it at the angle from scientific integrity, for instance, or integrity of human beings, or integrity of life. And you could look at it from a point of values. And this last way of looking at new developments, what value is included, and adding value to the system, adding value to human lives, is the most recent all-compassing approach of looking at these kind of questions. And another way of looking at what's going on, it's quite a Babylonic kind of talking with each other. If you look at the terms that are used when we look at artificial intelligence. And this is quite a new publication from Gupta and Peter too. And they have a very original method of sketching what kind of problems we are looking at. It is the meaning of our terms. We are using a lot of terms out of human development, and we apply them to artificial intelligence, like intelligence. We know from human intelligence that we can speak of a certain of at least 5 kinds of intelligence that human can be capable of, like emotional intelligence, cognitive intelligence, all kinds of competencies that come with the human existence. And I think when we speak about intelligence as artificial intelligence, something else is implied here. It's quite another kind of meaning of the term. So to speak with each other from these different approaches, to look at the implications of artificial intelligence technologies, you first should have some consensus about the terms. And this is very normal in the medical world, where you have multidisciplinary standards to work together. The first thing that you do is to have consensus about the meaning of the terms, the definitions. Theory starts also with definition of the concept and the terms. So I think there's a lot of work to be done to be able to develop a shared language where we can understand each other from out of the different professional practices, being it researchers, being it mathematicians, being it healthcare professionals, and not in the least being it patients. What are we talking about when we speak about artificial intelligence constructs and devices, if we have to make a choice about these? And I have an example, and this is in Dutch, but it's quite easy to understand. It's quite recent that I had a warning from my professional organization that there has been a mismatch by, this was caused by a transition of a calculating system and the way we access this system, and it helps us to make very fast precision dosage calculations for young children. We have this kind of devices for every sort of medication you could think about, all sort of transitions or switches. So we use a lot of these simple devices that you can easily check, are they wrong or are they right? So it was very fast that it was noticed that there were just 3/4 of an hour. This system didn't have access to the codes that take care of the integrity of the algorithm, so that the results are safe to use. But you can see what this means, because the medication that is mentioned here as risperidone or promethazine, adrenaline, can be really toxic to deadly, so people can die. So the idea of brilliant failure in developments is in a case that you have application direct on humanity, is something that as a pharmacist that is used to a very vast amount of risk assessment and systems to keep the medication safe, is a kind of tricky and a kind of strange from when I look at it from out of my practice. This also means a lot of extra work. All pharmacists who had this message, they didn't sleep the next day they knew they had to find out which patients possibly would have had medications that was calculated, or the dose was calculated with this model, because they're also integrated in automatically dose generating decision support systems that we use every day. And this is a simple example. It's not deep learning, it's just calculation. It's quite easy, but things can go wrong. And if you can't check them, then you, well, the risks, you don't have a clue about what kind of risks you would take, be it diagnosis, be it choosing an intervention. It's when you apply these systems on humans and human healthcare, then you should be very careful. Another kind of example that I would share with you is it's not exemplary, it's not well written, but we have the diagnostics statistical manual number 5. It's now operational for about 1.5 years. And there's a lot of controversy about this diagnostic statistical manual. And as a matter of fact, the whole system of diagnosing in mental illness, within mental illness, is in a paradigm shift. And I think it's kind of exemplary for the way that we are looking at the application of these vast diagnostic systems on humanity. In psychiatry, it's also especially, it's not a surprise that they are more or less the first to make it a big issue, because it's not the hard physical facts that are the basis of this statistic manual, but it's questionnaires. So there's to validate a questionnaire is a kind of art in itself, and you don't have really objective facts that you could check what's right and what's wrong, and if there is a real causal relationship between the output of the system and the way the world is. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, we don't have this relation. We don't have causal relationship between the physical, the way the physical world is, the real world, and the output of the system. So it's very hard to assess the reliability and the trustability of this kind of systems. And I think this is a good example of how this works, and it's really having a great impact on mental health care at this moment worldwide. And in the Netherlands, also a group of philosophers and psychiatrists is working on this. And it's really amazing what kind of research is being done there. And I think artificial intelligence, because it impacts the way we think and the way we are shaped. We shape artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence shapes us. The same is with, you can easily understand that psychiatric medication also shapes people and how they experience life and experience themselves. So it's this kind of analogies of impact of artificial intelligence that really have my interest and which I use in my practice. These are some examples of the way these questions are being addressed in the different scientific themes, zeg maar, from ethics of healthcare, but also in responsible research on the technical universities. The kind of issues that are at stake that come constantly addressed is privacy or informed consent, shared decision making, disclosure, social justice, evaluation practices and the regulation of human subjects research. That is all kinds of ethical questions are more or less heaped up, and nobody knows at last what we're talking about. The research group of BrainSec recently published the article. I think it's just published. The double-edged sword of the digital self-care, because we ask a lot of the population, normal population, if we expect them to use sophisticated artificial intelligence tools to use as self-care. I know self-care also from medications, and if you ask people to measure themselves, and they might not be aware of what these data mean, what do they mean, and how they are assembled, how they are processed, and how that leads to outcomes. I think also in politics, this is a question that has been looked at in other legal systems, what it does with people. So it's really a double-edged sword, this digital self-care, and we have all kind of expectations what to do and how we can use it, but you also should ask the question, are people able to make this choice in an informed way? So informed consent in this context could have a new meaning also. Then a last article is from Floridi, the research group from Floridi, who is really who's into this debate for a decade, I think, and he has done some really good research about the kind of questions you could ask. And he states also that we not should only look at the what of IA ethics, the benefits and the non-malevolence, autonomy, justice, and the explicability, but rather look at the practices. How are we going to work in practice with these new tools? Because if you have to wait, if you look at the regulations in the patient access to new medication, it takes years to prove the health and the benefit-harm balance before it is accepted by society, so that you can really apply it on the patients and the broader population. I think it's not a real reality. It's not an option to use this kind of processes also in artificial intelligence. And at the same time, I think the same kind of risk assessment should be in place, because the risks are not less than risk of taking medications. So for the, I would invite you to think with you together. If anyone has questions, I have some propositions to start a discussion, but maybe you have some questions, especially if you have dilemmas out of your own practice. It would be really interesting. This is what I do all day, moderating moral dilemma discussions about issues, ethical issues in your own practice. So you're invited to join the discussion.
If somebody has questions, and please just unmute your microphone and ask the questions. We have with 12 people, so that should be possible. Does anyone want to reflect on it?
Hi.
Manik, yeah. Marco, you're second. I don't know how I should pronounce your name, but Menenelle?
Minentle.
Menentle.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you, Wilma, for sharing your experience and your practice. I am not practicing any artificial intelligence. I recently graduated with my second master's in the humanities. And I am interested in technology because I co-founded 2 tech startups in Eindhoven. One in medical device technology, in a medical device with using Philips technology. And the second one is a game that I'm developing with another team for education, for transformative pedagogy for young children. I think I'm here because I'm attending this session because I'm more concerned about implementing artificial intelligence in a context where it's less accessible or it's marginalized. So I'm from Zimbabwe originally, and I studied in Cape Town for 7 years before I studied in Belgium as well. And what I noticed between these 2 different contexts is that there's a huge disparity in terms of accessing technology, enabling people to use it for instance, in the healthcare space. And while it's very effective in a very more advanced or developed country, my main question that I'm trying to develop towards a PhD research is how might we design AI and technology that is accessible to a developing country or people that have less access to technology, less, a lower grade of devices. Not everyone can afford an iPhone 12, for example. So these are questions I have on how technology can be innovated for that type of population, and how might that also be socially responsible, overall, given that these are questions I don't have answers to, but I mean, this is the discussion I want to develop for a PhD.
Thank you, Minekle. This is a very hot issue because we know this discussion also from access to healthcare in a broader sense. And I think this is more complicated because not only one thing is distributing and making medications accessible worldwide, but another thing is making technology accessible worldwide because there are some infrastructures that are needed to guarantee that worldwide people will have evenly access to these new artificial intelligence devices. And I think it is at the level of human rights and World Health Organization that these questions were developed for access to healthcare. And I think access to artificial intelligence support, you could think along the same lines. And I especially think you shouldn't develop it integrated in the WHO systematics. I think you should develop it from a new point of view. And the idea of democracy is at the bottom of this huge question. It's a basic question of humanity, that access to artificial intelligence devices should be guaranteed for everyone worldwide. And the same that's happening at this moment with the financial system. This is also a system that it enforces itself that capital is accumulating in an asymmetric way. And in the same way, the development of artificial intelligence tools could also develop in an asymmetrical way, because input is not in line with democratic principles, and that not everybody can participate. This participation is a basic requirement for ethical development of artificial intelligence tools.
Yeah, but it doesn't only mean, I think, that the development like this can only take place, for example, in rich countries. So one of the startups from Radboud, say Tirona, they have developed software to look at X-rays in relation to tuberculosis. And this software is used in all kinds of vans traveling through Africa to poor villages to help with the diagnosis of tuberculosis. So in a way, what you do, you supply people in a very cheap way with the knowledge of top experts who are able to look at medical imaging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that for you then the input that you could use?
Yes, I think what I appreciate the most from what you said is thinking about what democracy might mean when accessing digital innovation, and also how can one think outside the WHO framework in terms of the rights to certain things. Maybe some imagination can be developed from there. Is that something that I put down as from what she said?
Yes, because I think artificial intelligence is broader than healthcare systems. Mm-hmm. And the example that Martijn gave is a good illustration that you could enhance access to healthcare by artificial intelligence, by application of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay, Marco, you had a question?
Yeah, I don't have a specific question. I just want to, so with Predica, we're developing a diagnostic test in order to prevent cervical cancer. With the idea that women can send in scrapes. We perform an assay to define whether there's an HPV infection and a risk for cervical cancer. And of course, we will need to cope with several ethical and practical dilemmas. You know, how to educate women in order to convince that they need this screening, how to deal with diagnoses that are indeed hinting into a risk of cervical cancer. I guess this is a general dilemma for a lot of precision medicine and diagnostics. Yeah. So could you elaborate a bit on that? What we could expect as a startup company and how to deal with that?
Yeah, I think your first very valuable source for information would be patients or ex-patients to get a feeling for the sense of urgency in this specific population that you would like to invite to use these tools. So I think it's very important to listen first. What is the societal need? I think always the first step should be a very good inventarization of the needs of people in society themselves. For the former question, the same goes. So this is a principle. You should not try and develop tools if you're not convinced that there's a real societal need for the output that you want to deliver. So you always be in a direct contact and in an ongoing conversation with the people that you are developing these tools for. I think this is basic. This is about how democracy should work. And I see a lot of grassroots developments that try to do this because it's complicated. And it's really a bottom-up procedure, and not from a sophisticated invention and then looking for a market to sell it, where you come into the perverse situation that you're selling sickness because there's a good medication. So I think these are two extremes that we should realize in a very intense and constant way. What are we doing? What is our purpose of our own competencies and capabilities to make a contribution that's really valuable for humanity, and then start from that. And that's very different from a top-down way of looking at highbrow technologies and all things that you could do, and then try to sell it. And this is really a challenge, because we are in a very a system that's market-driven. So you're very a contractor if you start bottom-up and looking for where's the need. So this constant dialogue and really looking for the people who will be the users, the end users, and potential end users, and end users that were not able to have access and suffer from consequences not being able to use it.
Okay. You have something, Marco?
Oh, no, I just wanted to confirm your thoughts, Wilma, that indeed we're talking to patient and patient organizations and doctors. So I really subscribe that. That's really important. Thanks a lot.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks. There was a question through the chat. Where do you draw the line between artificial intelligence and data processing? That was by Frank Spates. Maybe he can...
Yeah, maybe to explain a bit more from the background of your question.
Yeah, can you unmute or? Yeah, I think he's unmuting, and there he is.
Yeah, here I am, sorry. Well, what I see is being mentioned as artificial intelligence, in fact, is intelligent data processing. The example that Martijn gave is a matter of intelligent data processing in terms of analyzing DICOM data, so image data, and find the aberrations in that compared to other images that have been annotated. And there's a lot of work going on in that field, which is highly respected by me, but that's not artificial intelligence, in my opinion, because it's the interpretation of data. And in my belief, intelligence has also other components in it, like creativity and data from outside the field that you're looking at. So where is that line for you? In view of the first slides that you presented, people try to define the wordings. In my opinion, what's called nowadays artificial intelligence, of what we have now, is just data processing. How do you look at that?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Because a computer, whatever, it stays a processor. It's just the data that you feed, that you feed the system, that will, in the end, create output. But it really will, in the end, it will be a calculus. It will be a calculus. So, for me, creativity. There's a factor of chance involved, that I do not see at this moment in the processing of data. I think it's two things. It's the immense mass of data and the speed of the process that gives this kind of really unimaginable output and also possibilities. But creativity, I think there you cross the line where you are in the human capacities, and that's not an aspect of artificial intelligence. But I might change my opinion. I don't know. I'm really looking at, excuse me, I'm really looking at the philosophical discussions about these concepts. Because our concepts change, and the meaning of a word is what Wittgenstein says is its use. So it might be that the word creativity in 5 years from now might have another meaning. But the interpretation of the output of data by a human, by a professional, for instance, does make a new can create new added value to link the outcome of these processed data to the individual goals of the end user, of people. And I think there's always the individual need of this patient or this human at this moment is not something that can be linked in a simple way to output of processed data. The last word that will be decisive on this is in what way do people have a free will, and how good does one know what he wishes? Do we really know what we need?
Also, I think the question is the work of a radiologist, is that intelligent? I think you can sort of ask the same question there.
It's more than that. I mean, I think it's the wrong question. It's putting the word intelligence to the work of a radiologist. The question more is, when do you pass the line of data processing so that you can talk about intelligence?
Yeah, when you're out of the processor.
Okay. But that's a challenge in the tremendous fast developing technologies at this moment.
Yeah, well,
especially if you just think about quantum computing and all these promises that are hanging in front of us.
Yeah. Quantum computing does include a new element. There's a new element of chance. And so I have to look into it. It's fascinating. I'm very curious what this will bring us. And also, if you think about applications like chips being implanted in our own physical human brain implants, for instance, there you also have a vague border between what is human output and what is artificial output. So I don't think it's very separate, because there's no humanity without technology. It's just that we always should ask the question, are we shaping technology, or is technology shaping us? And whatever the answer, we should be aware that we ask this question.
Yeah.
Okay. We are almost at the end of this session. Is there somebody that still has some burning question or remark? Yes.
I have a question. Is it possible, I'm very interested in just communicating this after the session. I sent you a message, Wilma. I'm not sure if you've seen it. I asked if I can contact you during my proposal writing process if I have any questions. If
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Yes, you're very welcome. Yes. And also, if you have discussions with colleagues about issues that you would like to clarify or deepen, I'm really willing to assist you or support communities or groups of researchers or practitioners to help address these kind of questions.
Sure.
Yes.
And where can I find your email address?
I think you can see it now. It's the last
Oh,
sheet.
right. Sorry. Thank you.
And otherwise you can contact us and we'll bring you into contact. Okay, thank you very much all for also the interaction and for the presentation, Wilma. And I will see you all at the next link of the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See
Thank
you.
See you.
Thank you.